Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image Program. The Unashamed Image Program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image Program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye.
Hey everyone! It's Erin Anderson with the Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching. I am super excited that you have tuned in today. Let's get talking about how to heal from betrayal trauma. Welcome to the other side of the struggle. This is a podcast where we talk about trauma, how to heal it, and then how to take it and use it to unlock your mission and your potential, and to use it to live your very best dream life. When you're dealing with betrayal trauma, it can be hard to know how to heal it, how to stop the pain, and to know what your next steps are to take in your own life. And these are the questions that we try to answer here. Trauma has the ability to rob us of our joy and identity, which is why it's so miserable to experience. But with the right tools and with the right mindset, we can totally reclaim that joy and even use this trauma to strengthen ourselves, so that way trauma does not knock us off of our joy again. Living your dream life should be a non-negotiable, but trauma tends to try to negotiate that with you. And even though trauma is not something that we will completely ever be free of in our life, the pain is negotiable. This is why I created Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching and this podcast, is because I want my listeners, I want my clients to live, truly live free from the prison that trauma can put you in. I want you to live on the other side of the struggle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. I have with us Amber Peterson, and Amber Peterson is a financial coach. And now, for those of you that are on here and you're all like, hold on a second, like I come to this podcast for like betrayal trauma stuff, right? Let me just say I get you, but money is like one of the things that is a consistent underrooting thing that I hear all the time that causes a lot of stress in marriages. And it's like also one of the biggest things that will stop people from actually healing. And we want to talk to that today because, if you're going to heal, it does take an investment not only just financially. I mean, yes, I healed with the power of the Lord, right? But still, that was actually an investment in time and money because there were certain things that, because I believed them, I ended up paying for them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I really want to stress the importance of listening to this today because if we can answer some of your questions and help change your mindset around money and also setting some boundaries with money and also investing in yourself, how that is going to shift you into healing, your family into healing, like it's just going to be so much better for you. So without further ado, I really, really want to thank Amber for being here, chatting with us today, and just tell her she's awesome and I'm so excited to have her.
Well, thank you so much, Erin. I'm so excited to be here. And I love talking about money because I know when we're confident in our money, it helps us create the lives that we love. And so I am just so thrilled to be here and to be chatting today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. Like what we believe about money really, really does matter.
Yes.
So, okay, let's talk about this for just a second. Like I really do hear this all the time. Like my husband is constantly stressed about money, and I find that, you know, uh, I have yet to find one of the husbands that, with the women that I've talked to or worked with, their husbands really do have some like big fears around money, and so I can get like when she's coming to him and saying, "Hey, I need to heal. I'm going to invest like thousands of dollars into my healing." He's going to be like, "Oh, right?
Yep.
Why would you do that?" Right?
Yep.
And it can cause a lot of tension in the marriage. And that's not something she wants because there's already tension there.
Exactly.
Right? So what can we do? Like, let me backtrack that for a second. The other thing too that I see her wanting to be is a respectful partner, like
Mhm.
respecting his emotions, respecting his thoughts, respecting these things. But what we're not actually looking at here is actually how investing in yourself financially is giving that respect, right? It really truly is. And I know that's like mind blowing to some people, right? But what really does happen financially when we shift into healing? Like, how does this bless us?
It blesses us in so many ways. And you might have heard of things like if you think about it and manifest, it will come into your life, right? And we're probably like, how does that happen? And well, how in the world can we bring this into our lives when we can feel so stuck?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that especially when you come into a place of healing and you come into a place of wanting to change for the better, it makes everything else in your life better. It's kind of like when you go on an airplane and they give you the instruction, hey, put your oxygen mask on before you put anyone else's on. Well, if you're struggling to breathe and you're willing to put on everybody else's oxygen mask, so often that wives and mothers do, we're taking care of kids first. We're taking care of our spouses. We're taking care of everybody else. So we're putting on everyone else's oxygen mask, but we're actually struggling to breathe. And so what happens? We aren't as helpful to our kids or to our spouse. We're not as respectful. We're not as accommodating. We're not as all of these things because we're just struggling. We're just struggling to breathe. We're just struggling to make it through the day. And so that's why mindset is so key to that and to start that process, because what we think and believe, whether it's about money, whether it's about our healing, whether it's about just life, or what we think and believe about our spouse, can play a huge role into then what we can do and create in our lives. And so the more that we can focus on what's going on internally and to take care of that, the more it's going to manifest itself outwardly.
Yeah. So true. So true. Thinking about like my own money journey, it definitely started with me having to choose into the healing no matter what, right? Because I love what you're saying here. We as women do tend to take care of everyone else before we take care of ourselves. And I feel like that's kind of like one of our weaknesses in a way. Like it's not a strength, because when I was in that, I was consistently yelling at my kids, consistently yelling at my husband, trying to control him, control what they did. And it's like you were saying, I was not able to breathe. Like I was suffocating. And I think there's so many women in here that can totally understand that and connect to that, because you cannot give what you do not have. So if you don't have oxygen, how are you going to give oxygen to someone else? Yeah, they might fall from the sky and you might strap it to somebody else's head, right? But you have to have oxygen in order to strap something to somebody else's head. If you don't have it, you can't give it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why it's so key to actually shift the priorities. You should not be at the bottom of the totem pole. Because it's your life, it should be, obviously God first. I am always about God first. And then you're right underneath that relationship. It's not about everybody else. You have to be first. Otherwise, you cannot properly take care of everyone else. I love that piece. So how does this shift us into a better space financially?
Yes. Well, and it's so fascinating because I don't think very often, as women especially, we don't think about our thoughts and beliefs around money. More often than not, then what comes up for us is there's just not enough money, or it's scarce, or I can't make enough, or my husband won't let me do this and this with money, or my husband controls the money and it's not up to me, not my decision. All of these are thoughts that are running in our heads. And if we don't take time to look at them and really examine them and say, are these really serving me? Do I really believe that? And do I want to believe that? Then they'll just keep running on autopilot because it's in our subconscious and it will just keep going and going and going. And then we're going, hey, why can't we be very successful with money? Why is no money coming in? Well, if you're constantly thinking that money is scarce and you believe money is scarce and money is just difficult, that's what is going to manifest in your life. So as we're starting to shift that mindset, and we can start thinking, I can afford this. I am abundant with money. I can create the amount of money I need to have the things I want. And especially as we were talking a little bit off air, to invest in healing. What if instead of going, I don't have the money for healing, my husband won't give me the money for healing? What if you say, I'm going to go and create that in my life so I can heal? Now, it doesn't mean we always know the how, but even that subtle shift in mindset and reminding yourself of that, then shifts us into this openness of what can now we create with our money. And then things start coming to us, whether it's inspiration or whether it's these thoughts that come in and be like, oh, I never thought about that. I could do that. And that would help me bring in additional income.
Yeah, no, I love that so much, so much. Because when we think like everything is out of our hands, that's where it stays. Right? It truly is. And that's part of the reason why we struggle with control, is because we think everything is out of our hands. And so we're like desperately trying to pull it back. Yes. Right? But the truth of the matter is, you absolutely can create money. Time is the one commodity you cannot create more of.
Yes.
That is the only thing. Once it's spent, it's spent. You cannot get more. You are allotted 24 hours every single day. That is it.
Yes. Yep.
And
That's
so,
one thing we're all equal on.
yes, exactly. And so we need to be wise in how we spend that. But I remember, when my husband and I were first married, and again, I had a couple little people, and we were struggling financially. My goodness, I do think I can speak English. And, I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, like, how am I going to pay for these things? Like, this is not good. And so I started thinking about like all of the things that I was good at, right? All of the things I actually could do that allowed me to stay in the home with my kids, but also create some extra income. And so I got downstairs in my craft bin and I started crafting, and I made cards for baby blessings, and I made cards for like baptisms, and like all of these different things that are big in my culture, right? And or my religious culture, I should say, and they weren't available here. And so I started making a bunch of them, and I had them on hand, figured in like what my costs were, and then I upped them for the time, like $1, right? And I brought in about $200 that first month from doing that. And that was a giant help to me and my family, right? Because we were able to meet some needs that we wouldn't have met otherwise. But it's like you said, it took me from shifting into, well, it's all his, to, nope, how can I create this? Because it is absolutely possible to attract money into you, but you first and foremost have to fill a need. See a need, fill it, it comes, right? And now, it went from that to tutoring kids after school to tutoring kids online, and now I'm creating, a 6-figure coaching business. And it's all from home. I still get to be home with my kids, and I'm working part-time doing these things and really helping my family, but it had to start somewhere, right? Yeah, totally.
Yes.
So how do we have these difficult conversations though with our spouses? Because you mentioned a minute ago, like our husbands sometimes, I don't want to say ours because I think yours and mine are great, but like I know that husbands, especially with the women that I coach, can be difficult when it comes to saying, hey, I want to go invest a lot of money into myself, and I know it's important. So how can we start this difficult conversation so they still feel like they're being respectful of their spouse, but also stating, no, this is a non-negotiable. This has to happen. So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves, so that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
It's a great question, because here you are, you have your own beliefs and mindsets around money. And now you bring a whole new person into the conversation of your spouse having their own beliefs and mindsets around money. And if you've ever tried to have a conversation with money and it has not ended well, or there's been hurt feelings, it's because maybe we just don't know how to communicate that. And so I'll give you some suggestions. First of all, when you're having a money conversation, try to create as safe a space as possible, and free of distractions if possible as well. So, if you have littles in the house, if maybe you do it when they're in bed, and you turn off the electronic devices, and being able to really focus on your spouse and share this information with them, and being willing and establishing, open and honest communication, being willing to then go into it and saying, we're just want to be open with you and I want to be honest. I'm not going to be judgmental of what you think and believe about money, or maybe what I'm going to say, or what, how I feel about money. But let's just establish that we just want to get it out there and talk to each other about our money situation. Now, especially too, if you're in a dynamic where you feel that your husband's in control of all the money, he's making all the money, and you're maybe more of a stay-at-home mom, okay? There's many different layers that we can go into, but when it comes to money conversations, you're a partnership, okay? He can't do what he does if you don't do what you do, and you can't do what you do if he doesn't do what he does. It is a partnership you guys have together. So money should also be a partnership. It is not just one or the other, but he may have a belief that it is. So I would also come into the situation talking to your spouse about why it's important to you, how you think it can benefit. A lot of times when it comes to our spouses, they may need to see a cost benefit ratio of,
Right.
okay, if we do this, what are the benefits of this? And talk about why it's important to you, what you feel this will do to help you and your family move forward. And I think opening up that conversation, being able to be open and honest and non-judgmental on both sides, can really help establish a better communication about your money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you're saying that, like, actually bring the benefits to the situation where the two of you can actually talk about it. Now, I will also mention that I think that a lot of men who are struggling with a pornography addiction, this kind of conversation terrifies them. Okay? Because, like, what does that actually mean about this? They already know that they're struggling with a pornography addiction. It's terrifying for them to have anybody talk about that, or that their wife actually has to heal from that. And so, like, they're having to really come to terms, with this conversation, like the damage that they've created, right? And I say that with love, no judgment or anything like that. We both create damage in relationships. Like, it just happens. But, like, it's terrifying for our husbands to actually acknowledge that. And so that's a lot of the reason sometimes why they're so adamant about her not getting the support she needs. You know what I mean? So how do we create that conversation, and how do we, in a sense, kind of fluff his ego a little bit, but also state that this is really what needs to happen?
And that's very understandable, where they're coming from a mindset of, if she gets the help she needs, if she sees maybe the full picture of everything that's going on, I think the underlying fear there is that she will no longer want to be with me. I believe is the underlying concern. So even though it's something their brain's giving them as a way to fix the problem, it's also misinterpreted in their brain too, because if you prevent healing, then what happens is that the marriage continually erodes and falls apart, right? When one of the biggest things when it comes to healing is confession, is bringing it out. There's just being open and honest. And that's the same thing about money, is in establishing the fact that there's not going to be judgment there. I'm not saying there isn't going to be pain and hurt, but that you are coming to an understanding and that information needs to be out there. And then when it's out there, then it gives you the opportunity to work on it. When you give the full picture of finances, when you say, this is what I've been spending money on, this is, what's been happening, then there's a way to move forward. But if it's all kept secret because of the fear of pain and hurt, then it just continues to deteriorate. So I think not only the non-judgment, but then also saying, I'm being willing to understand and listen to you with openness, and not just shutting the door and slamming the door and being like, you're terrible, you're awful in this conversation. Right. But it's like, I need to understand where you're coming from. I need to understand what you're thinking and feeling. And if it helps too, in your particular situation, establishing the fact that when you're more open and honest with me, it can strengthen our relationship. But if you're not open and honest with me, then it actually deteriorates our relationship and it makes it harder to move forward. So the very thing that they're fearing usually is something they want to avoid. And so you can say, hey, this can strengthen us rather than take us apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only is he afraid of like losing her, but he's afraid of like losing his reputation.
Yes.
To a degree, because if you think about the reputation of men who are into pornography, it's not a good one at all. And, and I kind of have to say, I think that women who have been hurt by pornography definitely, add to that pain a little bit. And and there's no judgment, no blame for that. But when you're an angry person and you're hurt, you don't always speak and act in a wise manner. Right. So it does happen. And, he's also afraid of all this shame and this guilt and this judgment. And so, having a conversation with him and helping him to feel peaceful, and say, hey, I'm not going to spread what's happening to you. I'm not going to tell the whole world, that this is what's happening. But when we can actually heal from something like this, that is a place where people really admire, because they understand how difficult it is to heal. Right?
Yes. Yes. I think there's a couple of things there that I think could be beneficial, especially having those conversations, is express to them what you're grateful for that they are doing. And I know that's really hard when we're feeling so hurt, but to point out those things in them that they are doing well. Are they a great dad? Are they, able to bring in income? Are they able to provide those type of things? Because when we start to open ourselves to what we're grateful for, it shifts us as well. Instead of feeling in that, and I'm not saying it doesn't hurt and it's not supposed to be there. I want you to feel your feelings. But at the same time, when you can start shifting just a little bit to see what the good parts are in them, then that helps open you up to have more meaningful conversations that can be helpful to you both. And I also think too, it's being willing to allow those feelings to be there. Not saying they have to go away, or I shouldn't feel this way, or he shouldn't feel this way, allowing them to be there. And also looking at the future, what it could be like on the other side of everything.
Yes, because this is actually a healing principle, right? Actually allowing yourself to sit in the emotion for a second. not even just a second. Like there's a study that says like when people sit in an emotion for 90 seconds, it'll burn out, right? And if it's not re-triggered, it goes, hey. But if we can sit in it and just get curious for a few minutes, yes, that helps our healing journeys. That brings us wisdom, that brings us clarity, and it actually does bring us financial abundance. It does. Because money, if we're creating, well, emotions are part of the creation process. When
Yes,
you are comfortable,
100%.
exactly, when you're comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yep, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, it really is. Money does come to you because people want to know how you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Relationships are uncomfortable. When you are uncomfortable being uncomfortable, you can actually stand some really harsh winds with some really solid boundaries, right?
Yes. And I think that's an important thing to bring up is, well, there's two things I wanted to bring up. One is what you and your husband are most likely feeling or avoiding feeling is they don't want to feel the shame. They don't want to feel the guilt. They don't
Yeah.
want to feel the embarrassment. We as women are the same. We don't want to feel those things either. We as human beings don't like feeling negative emotion. It does not feel good.
Yes.
But just like you said, that if we allow the emotion to be there, even though it's uncomfortable, even though we don't like it, our body is built to process it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we need to let it be there. I kind of think sometimes of those negative emotions as a toddler throwing a temper tantrum. If we try to push them away or ignore them or bury them down deep, what we try to do as women, what happens? They get louder.
Yeah.
They're like, they start pounding on you, like, you need to pay attention to me right now.
Right.
And that's what our emotions do is they come back stronger and more forceful. And sometimes when unexpectedly, right? We'd just be going about our day and just start breaking down into tears and be like, what's going on? It's because those emotions have to be addressed. So that's another reason why bringing them out into the open, as uncomfortable as they may be, whether it's a confession or whether it's trying to overcome this, those need to come out so our body can process them. So I
Yes.
think that's so important.
Well, one story I tell on this podcast, and I promise I'm not an abusive wife. I am not. It was just like an act in the moment, but I remember getting so angry at my husband that I picked up a metal chair and chucked it at his head. He ducked. He ducked. Okay, I'm so glad he did. But the thing is that's an emotion that's not processed,
Mhm.
right? And so it can become, like you said, kind of violent,
Yeah.
right?
And sometimes you're like, where did that come from? And it's because they haven't been addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we dial things back a little bit, we can actually start to communicate these things. We don't have to scream and shout and throw this big, huge show, but emotions are there to get our attention, right? They're actually part of the language of heaven, believe it or not. Because every single time I've ever had like a download from God or like had some sort of like, ooh, moment, it always comes in this feeling of love and peace and joy and warmth. And you have to be
Mhm.
aware of your emotions in order to gain wisdom.
Yes.
It is necessary. And so when we can learn to start checking in with those things and, saying, hey, say husband is still like not on board because this does happen, right?
Mhm.
Hey, well, I want you to know that I'm feeling XYZ. Maybe it's disrespected, maybe it's unseen, maybe it's, unheard, and that this is a need, right? This
Yes.
like things cannot continue happening the way they are. And if we're going to make this marriage work, then, you know, this is what we're going to have to do. So if you want to stay in this, you know, then you can either be on board or off board, but I'm moving forward, right?
Yeah. And I think there's something to that too that can be so powerful. And I like to call it a win-win situation.
Yes.
So because when we're saying this is the line and that's it, no, I'm a firm believer that we need to set boundaries and non-negotiables, and we can go into that if we've got some time.
Yes, absolutely.
But I also think if we can make it more of a win-win for everybody. And that means compromise on both parts. Then everyone feels good moving forward. Maybe not the best because they didn't get everything that they wanted, but you both feel like we can make this work. We can make a little bit of sacrifice. We can work together and make this happen. So two, if you're looking into something, you're saying, I really feel called that this is the route I need to go and I need help with it. Then find ways during those conversations to make it a win-win for you both. Maybe that's you finding a little bit of extra work. Maybe it's him also giving a certain amount of money every month. Maybe it's, finding something that you can do together to make that happen. Then not only is it getting you closer to your goal, but it's actually bringing you closer together as a couple. So in every situation, as much as possible, let's see where we can find a win-win. And sometimes it might be like, okay, we're going to stop spending in this category for a while and redirecting it to another category. And that can be incredibly powerful. And then of course, your non-negotiables and boundaries, I think, are very, very key as well. And not to push a partner away, but to establish safety for everyone. So especially when it comes to money, you may want to look at, okay, what are some non-negotiables? Now, if they're abusive, if they are not willing to share any money with you, if they're not willing to compromise or work together, that may be a non-negotiable or boundary that you need to establish. You wouldn't want, I kind of think of our kids. If someone was verbally, emotionally, or physically beating them, that is not okay. And it's not okay for you as well. So instead of enduring that, you need to set a boundary to say, if this is what you're choosing to do, then I need to remove myself from the situation until you are calm.
Yeah.
And if you have established, okay, this is a non-negotiable and it happens, then you need to decide, where do you want to go from there? Do you want to keep trying to work it out? Or if you're like, nope, that's not working, then what do you want to do at that point? Because if we don't establish those non-negotiables and boundaries, then you don't have any rules about how someone should treat you.
Yeah.
And it's so important that you need to have that as respect for you and to let others know how you want to be treated.
Exactly. And and I should mention here too, like, it is not our jobs to be responsible for what someone else thinks. That's not your
Nope.
responsibility.
We can't do it.
No, you can't do it. You can influence. You absolutely can influence. And, when you heal, you're actually way more influential, just to say this, right? But you're ultimately not responsible for what someone else thinks. You're only responsible for yourself. That's the only person you can actually be responsible for. And so when we recognize that we're going to set some boundaries and we need to really consider, like, what are our decisions in this situation, right? That gives you some clarity in what to do next. And that's really, really important. So what are some things that, say a husband is still just an adamant no, what is something that she can do from home? So, because she, being at home, being the mom and taking care of her kids and her home is still really important, but start bringing in maybe, say, $500 extra a month for herself.
Mm-hmm. So I would say first and foremost, and I know this can maybe sound woo to people, but it's your mindset. Find out where you are in your mindset first, because if you notice, and what I love to do is a thought download. And so basically I will think about a question of, what do I think about money? And just write down everything that comes to my mind, good, bad, negative, positive, whatever it is. So then I can examine what I really think about money. And then from there, just kind of question them a little bit. Is that what I want to believe? Do I think that's helping? Like, if I see on my paper that I think money's scarce and money is hard and money's terrible and I hate dealing with money because I was there once, then I'm going, well, that's not going to help me create more. That's in fact going to stop me. So then I would start looking at that and go, do I really believe money's scarce? Well, I don't know if I think money is scarce. Maybe I feel like there's just not enough quite coming to me. Well, how can I change that? So it's just kind of playing with those thoughts and really deciding, because what we think leads to how we feel, leads to our actions or inactions, which leads to our results. That's part of what I teach.
Mm-hmm.
So,
5-step thought process. That's what we talk about it with
yep,
us, right?
love it. So I think that honestly is key. And the more we can start shifting our mindset to what we want to create in the positive, that is going to make a world of difference. Now, if you're talking more nuts and bolts, as far as what can you do, there are so many opportunities now in this day and age, which I think is beautiful, that give us the opportunity to work from home and to bring in an income, and whatever that may look like, direct sales. That is a huge thing right now with so many different companies, so many different type of products and services. I know I have one with my financial business as well, and coaching, because I feel like that's a great way to kind of have a business in a box.
Yep.
So yes, it comes with maybe some tactics that we don't love, but you can learn to mold them to fit you and your lifestyle. I also love that you mentioned you thought about something you already have and that you love to do, which was crafting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would also suggest to your listeners to find out, what do you love? What is available to you right now that you can feel a need for? What's out there that you feel like could really be beneficial? And then go with it, and see. And once again, going into this realm in this space could feel a little scary, a little overwhelming. There might be a lot of questions that you may have, but just start. And you can go from there, and you can change, and you can develop and see what really is going to fit your needs. There's also different kind of corporate type jobs you can do as well. So, medical coding can do from home, or answering phones can be done from
Mm-hmm.
home. So there are different opportunities that way as well. But as you start opening up your mindset, more of those opportunities will come to you. So then you can decide what's going to fit you the best.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And like I'm thinking about like some of the things that I've done in the past, like, working as a tutor, for kids. Like
Yes.
honestly, out school, you don't have to have a degree to tutor
Mhm.
on there. So if you're good at like crafts, or you like to work with kids, you can get on there and you can start creating some classes that can bring in a few extra $100 a month.
Mhm.
And another fun one, I have a friend that lives down the street from me, and I don't know exactly how much it is. I know it's in the thousands, but she gardens,
Yeah.
and she then takes and sells like her flowers and bouquets and like her produce, and like she's got a greenhouse now. She didn't start that way, but like that's what she does, and people come and they buy those things. She does classes on gardening.
Mhm.
Like there's like if you have a niche that you really love, you can start teaching that niche. You can start, bringing people in. The direct sales, I don't know a single, actually, I'm looking at like all of my 6-figure friends, 6, 7-figure friends. I don't know a single one of them that has not some ties to some sort of direct marketing, right? Because for me, it's doTERRA. I love the oils,
Mhm.
right? And so it's like there's so many different income streams out there that once we just start and we can get ourselves organized, go get the organized for healing if you guys want that. That's on my website, so that'll help. So you can start organizing your time, right? To fit in some of this. And I can promise you, if you're worried, well, what about the kids, right? I have 6 children, okay? They're alive still and happier because I chose to start creating some money for me. And because I started creating money for me, now they get to have birthdays. They get to have pants, even though I will say within the first week of school, my 2 youngest boys have totally blown out the knees of their pants. But like, it's just like it's so wonderful being able to be a mom, a business owner, and provide for their needs plus my clients' needs. Like it is totally possible, my loves. But it just takes, like she's saying here, shifting the mindset into what is actually possible, not letting somebody tell you it's not possible. It might not be possible through your husband, and that might mean, you might have to take some time and do some creation. That's okay. But I will tell you also another big piece that comes from people who start acting now. There's a healing aspect in this, because what that's going to start teaching you to do is start banking on yourself, start having confidence in your decisions, and to start aligning yourself to the things you want. These are healing principles, and money follows healing principles.
Yes. It opens you up to abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And so just practice those small daily things of just shifting that mindset, and it will bring you to abundance.
Abundance of many things, not just money.
Not just money. Yep.
Yep. Amber, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This was so good and, so helpful, because it's really important for us to understand what our hang-ups are, what our objections are, and what our fears are, and to really map those out so that way we can get clear with them and move past them. So thanks so much. We will have Amber back again, because I really do feel like it's important to have, money conversations for sure. And so she'll be back on the podcast, you guys. Let us know if you've got any questions that you'd like Amber to answer. And in the meantime, go check her out at, where do they find you?
So there's a lot of places you can find me, but I think one of the best resources is going on to my weekly show and podcast as well, which is called Mamas and Money. So you can find me anywhere on the podcast platforms, or you can find me at Mamas and Money at winwinwomen.tv.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, everyone. Until next week, from my heart to your heart, I'll see you on the other side, guys. Bye. Okay, so I've got a question for you. Have you joined my free Facebook group or Instagram page yet? If you haven't, go and do that. And this is the reason why. I always post my freebies, updated information, and all kinds of goodies for my community in that page. I'm also really active. I post videos. I answer questions. So if you guys really, really want to get in and interact with me, go like me on Facebook, go join my group, The Other Side of the Struggle, Healing from Betrayal Trauma. Come find me on Instagram, Erin Anderson, Betrayal Trauma Coach, and come follow me, because I always have something good there just for you, my audience, and I love connecting with you there. I also post anytime that I have groups going on. I talk sometimes about my programs. So if you guys are interested in working with me, or even just following me and getting as much free content as you possibly can, go hang out in my group. Go connect with the ladies that are there. Also come and join Immune and Unashamed for those married couples that are following me, because in that group, me and my business partner, Kyson Kidd, are also talking and offering some great content. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna